Hey guys, one more video from Arches before we head out to our next national park. So I promised you yesterday that we would talk about how this region formed. So here I am standing at the Moab Fault, which is actually right there, right by where the road is standing. This area has had some pretty interesting geological history. So around 300 million years ago, to the northeast, we had some mountains that were building. And as those mountains were building, the area that we're standing in depressed, and that's called the Paradox Basin. So we have this huge basin structure, like where we live in New Orleans, big basin. We have this big basin structure. And sea level at that time was extremely high, so the basin was flooded with water. And sea level fluctuated for many hundreds of millions of years afterwards. So as sea level rose and fell and rose and fell, the water that was stuck in that basin would periodically dry up. And as it would dry up, lots of salt was left behind. So much salt that in some areas we have 5 to 10,000 feet of salt. So an immense amount of salt. Over time, that salt became buried, right, by sediment that was washing down and sitting on top of it. And the interesting thing about salt is when you compress salt, when you push on it, it acts like a liquid. So we have the same thing down in Louisiana. Same thing happened in the Mesozoic, which is why we have these big salt domes all over the place. Same thing happened here. So the sediment sitting on top of the salt compressed it. Salt doesn't want to do that. It wants to move upwards just like a liquid, and that's what it did, so it started to dome. However, the rocks on top are really, really heavy, and we're pushing down on it. So the salt actually traveled all the way down to here, and it got stuck. Now, as time moved on, about 70 million years ago, there was a lot of fracturing in this area, and the salt was actually able to move up, kind of create a large, large dome, and be able to fracture its way up to the surface. Today, there's no more salt left here. It is all eroded away. But about 6 million years ago, as that salt was moving and things were eroding out, we have this big fault line that's created. Now, you can't really see the fault that's behind me. Like I said, it's kind of paralleling the road here, but to give you a good idea of how much movement happened along this fault, the rocks that are at my feet, so where I am standing, are actually equivalent to the rocks that are way up here on the other side of the road. So there's about 2,300 feet worth of difference. So the side of the fault I am on actually down dropped as compared to over there. And that's what helped create all the erosional features that you see over here. So super interesting geological history. All right, we will see you at our next national park.